When I was a little kid, my best friend and I would always end up going to the state fair. Either my parents would take us or his parents would take us. And as I look back as a junior high kid, I had many great memories going to the state fair. I don't know what it is. It's such a sensational event with all the strobe lights, the rides, the people barking out at you. And it's just a great event. The smell. If you take time out, if you've been to a state fair, you can smell, right? The cotton candy, the popcorn, the sweat, the grime, right, of a state fair. And then you would see those people who were controlling the rides, right? They were the ones that were controlling the roller coaster and the spin around thing. And they had these weird blue things on their arms. And tattoos, that's right, yeah. I think they're catching on. But anyway, so I would go to the state fair and I loved it. I liked the food. The food. We had this one attraction. It was all they sold was French fries, right? And it was French fries in a cone, in a paper cone with salt, and check this out, malt vinegar. Thank you, choir. One of the best things I've ever put in my mouth. I've searched the world over to find those folks. I haven't found them. I really believe that when I die and when you go to heaven, St. Peter's there. He's going to give you cone, fries and vinegar, and Bluebell cookies and cream on the other hand. Welcome to heaven. So, Eventually, my friend and I would wind up as little J-High kids, in the house of mirrors. How many of you have ever been in a house of mirrors? Raise your hand. Most of us have been, right? Not the best time in the world to see yourself in a million different angles and ways when you're in J-High going through the change, right? But we would, right? And I was skinny back then. And so I would go and I want to get into the big mirror. And so now, golly, I'm bigger. So that's what it would look like. That's what I would look like if I gained some weight and worked out, right? And had some vitamins and all that. I could get bigger. Then if you were big, you were too big back then, you could look in the skinny mirror and wow, I look lean and mean and not too far in between. I'm really trim. And then you go to other mirrors, right, that make your head look really wide. Remember that? Your mouth or you're really long. And then you see the squiggly one. So in the house of mirrors, right, it reflects back this image that we have. And many times that image it reflects back is a little bit distorted. But mirrors, whether you're in the house of mirrors or not, mirrors can be a brutal, crude form of reality, can't they? They can, right? You look into the mirror and we have to look at ourselves. We have to look at our bodies, don't we? Yeah. And then what is it about our bodies that we're just not that comfortable with? We're not, you look in the mirror and if you're skinny, you want to be big. If you're big, you want to be little. If you have straight hair, you want to have curly hair. If you have red hair, you want to have brown hair. If you have brown hair, you want to bleach it blonde. Right? All these things, right? We want to change about our body and the way we look, our physicality. And now for the last 2 weeks, we've got to watch the Olympics. All these perfect men and women just chiseled like, the statue of David in Rome. I mean, body. It's tough to deal with our bodies. And most of us here, not all of us here, but most of us here would say, yeah, I struggle with my body image and how I see myself. It's interesting that, as you listen to God's word, as you read God's word, and you begin to understand the Christian faith, God talks a lot to us about our bodies. Our bodies. We've been talking about the resurrection this entire summer. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, we've been looking at the resurrection, and the resurrection is an embodied experience. Incarnation, God became a man, flesh. It's very embodied. But what about our bodies? What about your body, my body? Will it get better? Will it get worse? What do we do with our bodies, and what will happen to our bodies once we leave this place? What's going to happen? Those are some of the questions we're going to get into today as we look at 1 Corinthians 15, verses 35 following. And if you don't have a Bible, there's one in front of you in the pew racks, so you can pick up a Bible there. You can find 1 Corinthians 15. It's in the New Testament. Go right. If not, it's on the screen in front of you. 1 Corinthians 15, verses 35 following. Paul writes, he said this, he said, someone will ask, how are the dead raised? How are the dead raised? With what kind of body will they come? Verse 36, how foolish. And by the way, when I read this week, I was like, I thought it was a pretty good question. I did, but Paul's coaching me up here. How foolish, why should I even ask the question? What you sow does not come to life unless it dies. When you sow, you do not plant the body that will be just a seed, perhaps of wheat or something else. Verse 38, but God gives it a body as he has determined, and to each kind of seed he gives its own body. All flesh is not the same. People have one kind of flesh, animals have another, birds have another, and fish have another. So this passage tells us that God is the source of everything. God is the uncaused cause behind all of reality. God has created the universe, and if there's a multiverse, he's created that as well, so don't panic. He's created everything, everything. And God created our bodies. And we go back to our origin story in Genesis. God made us, body, mind, and spirit, and said, it is good. He said, it is very good. So God made our bodies. Our bodies and our souls and minds have a connection. They're not at odds with one another. Because what was happening in Corinth, and it's still around today in the 21st century, is that we have this Platonic view, and Plato taught that our souls are trapped or imprisoned by our physical body. So the goal was for Plato and Platonists was to escape the body when you die, and the soul goes into the eternal realm. That's not what God teaches us. He says here in this illustration, a very simple illustration about planting. He says, you don't plant a stalk of wheat in the ground. You plant a seed, the seed dies in some ways and comes back out a stalk of wheat. So it's going to be the same way with our bodies. We will be buried and put in the ground, our bodies, our substance, and then we will come back up with a different type of existence. We have a body now, and we will have a body later once we pass on into the next realm. So, what kind of body will we have in the next life? What will it be like? Look at verses 40 following. There are also heavenly bodies. So we could just stop there. We're going to have a heavenly body. No. So he's not talking about that. He's talking really about astronomy here. He said there are also heavenly bodies and earthly bodies. But the splendor of the heavenly bodies is one kind, and the splendor of the earthly bodies is another. The sun has one kind of splendor, the moon another, stars another, and even stars differ from star in splendor. Here's a transition, verse 42. So it will be with the resurrection of the dead. So it will be in the next life. The body that is sown perishable, this body, is raised imperishable. It is sown with dishonor, it is raised in glory. It is sown in weakness, it is raised in power. It is sown a natural body, it is raised a spiritual body. If there is a natural body, there's also a spiritual body. And what a spiritual body means here is not a non-corporeal entity, but a body that is completely and perfectly in control by the Spirit of God. So, in the future resurrection of the dead, once we have died and passed on, What is our bodies going to be like to engage in and to live in this new world, this new creation that the resurrection of Christ foreshadowed, was a microcosm of? Years ago, my mom, about 15 years ago, said, "Hey, Ben, there's this new guy I met at church. He's brand new, second. He's just moved back to Houston. I think you need to meet him, and I think you guys will become friends." And I don't know, you get a certain age, do you really want any more friends? I don't know, maybe. But it's my mom, right? I can trust my mom. She's a great lady. It's okay, Mom. Oh, well, I'll meet with this guy. So I met with this guy, and let's call him Chris. That's not his name. So I said, Chris and I started talking, and we had a lot in common. We liked a lot of the same things. We had a lot of mutual friends here. And he, like myself, liked surfing, which is kind of an unusual hobby. Not everybody likes to surf. So, we went surfing and down at Surfside and became friends. And then I have another buddy of mine, Mike, who lives in the People's Republic of Austin. And he grew up in Houston, and I've known him for like 40 years. We're pretty tight. And so I was talking to Mike on the phone, and he goes, "Man, this new guy, Chris, that you keep talking about, tell me about him. What is he like?" I said, "Well, Mike, he's OCD like you, but not as OCD. He's a really good surfer, probably honestly a little better than you. And Mike's a better surfer than I am. They're all better than me, but he's probably better than you. And he's successful. He's done well. To be honest, he's probably a little more successful than you." And I said, I'll go, "Mike, it just dawned on me, Chris is you 2.0. He's a better version of you." So, as fate would have it, eventually I was able to introduce Mike to Chris, and Mike got to know Chris, and my friend Mike, he's so funny, he's so humble. He goes, "You know what? You're right about him. He is a better version of me." So, we call my friend to this day, we don't call him by his name, we call him 2.0. He's 2.0. So as I read this passage, I go, that explains it. What are our bodies going to be like? What is Paul trying to communicate as to what's going to happen to your body and my body if you know Christ in the new life? It will be your body 2.0. It will be a much better version of who you are. It will be you. There will be continuity, and there will be some things that are different, so there will be discontinuity as well. What's the continuity? Well, the continuity between your body now, your life now, and 2.0 in the future in the resurrection, the continuity is that you will be able, just like you do now, you can talk, you can communicate, you can eat, you can walk, you'll have memory, you'll be able to recognize certain people. So that's the sameness, the continuity that you'll have. The discontinuity is that you will not have the space-time dimensional limitations that we have right now. Material objects appearing and disappearing do not seem to be a problem with this new type of body. Also, too, you're going to be able to give just unbelievable fishing advice, some of you got that, which you probably can't do right now. So there will be issues of discontinuity as well. And there will be something that's definitely you, the way you look in your body, but there's also going to be something different. And I'm basing this, you say, what are you basing this off of? I'm basing all this off of the different appearances that Christ made to his disciples and his followers. Does that make sense? So we can learn, not everything we see in the mirror dimly. We can't know everything, but we have a glimpse, we have a little bit of an appetizer of what our own resurrected bodies will look like. Our bodies 2.0. There'll be issues of continuity and discontinuity. It'll be similar to Christ's own transformed, resurrected body. Christ was resurrected, not resuscitated. Lazarus was resuscitated. He came back in the same body, okay? Eventually died. Christ came back in a body, but it was a different type of body, a different type of way of existing. So, Christ died, he rose again, he appeared in a transformed body. We will die, we will rise again, we will appear in a transformed body. We'll be able to recognize our loved ones, we'll be able to converse. But we won't have a lot of these clumsy, body parts, and we won't have this weird distortions as we look ourselves in a new and improved mirror. Our bodies will not be subject to decline or decay or to drooping, okay? That will not happen. We will have a transformed body. Perhaps some people ask the question, well, what will happen if I die? Let's say that I die before Christ comes back. I die before this general resurrection. What will happen to me then? Well, a couple of answers that Christians have given over the years is this. One would be is that we'll temporarily be out of our body. So our soul, if you would, which is that immaterial substance that kind of defines who we are, our memory, our consciousness, it kind of unifies us. Our souls will be with God. So when we die, we are with God. He told the thief on the cross, today you will be with me in paradise. Paul said in other places, to be away from the body is to be with the Lord. So if there is any type of time gap, our souls will be with God and in his presence. Now, I personally believe that once we die, we enter into a state of timelessness, okay? So we move from chronos, chronological time, that's all that we can think about as humans, into this state of kairos, which is living in the now. So all these questions we have about sequencing and will our soul sleep, is there a purgatory, all those are erased once you enter into this eternal, timeless realm, okay? So, bottom line is this. Not to get too confusing and too complicated, okay? The bottom line is this, is that we, as followers of Christ, have a bright future ahead of us. We have an amazing bodily life that awaits us at the end of time when God brings down justice to this earth, when Christ comes again, and when there is a merger between the infinite realm and the finite realm, when heaven comes to earth, these new heavens and new earth. Our new bodies are made for the new realm. They will be renewed. They will be powerful. They will be beautiful. They will be splendid. That's what we have to look forward to. Yes. Yeah. And I think too, parenthetically, as far as, well, how do we know there's a soul separate from our body? There's a book called Beyond Death's Door, written by a cardiologist by the name of Maurice Rawlings. And in that book, Dr. Rawlings talks about NDEs, near-death experiences, where a soul or some type of entity seems to leave the body, and he goes back and recounts that. So that's, if you want scientific evidence of the existence of the soul, I think that's it's not ironclad, but it's pretty interesting if you read that. So, meanwhile, back at the ranch, back at our bodies 1.0, okay? What do? I look forward to the future. I look forward to what God has in store for us beyond this realm, beyond this life. At the same time, you live right here in the here and now on planet Earth as we're walking around in our imperfect bodies 1.0. What does God want us to do? 1 Corinthians chapter number 6, 19 following, gives us a clue. Paul writes here, earlier in this letter in 1 Corinthians, do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit who is in you? Remember, I'm in Christ, Christ is in you, whom you've received from God. You are not your own, you've been bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies. Christ paid the price and rose again in the body. Your body matters so much to God in Christ. Your life matters so much to God in Christ. What has happened to you in your body matters so much to God in Christ that Christ came into this realm in a body, suffered on a cross in a body, was tortured on a cross in a body, took the wrath of God himself in himself for you and for me. Then he rose again on the third day, which is saying, this is my son who I am well pleased. I accept this sacrifice in the body. You were bought with a price that we might be forgiven. And then he goes on, therefore, what do? He says, honor God with your body. Honor God with your bodily life. We need to be able to look at ourselves in the mirror, and this is a very difficult thing to do, but to be able to look at ourselves and quote some of Psalm 139 and say, God, I thank you that I am fearfully and wonderfully made. God, I thank you that I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And we kind of can move, hopefully, from struggling about our bodies to a place of being thankful to God for our bodies, no matter where they are at this phase in our life. Honor God with your bodies. Your bodies matter to God. Your body is a temple. It's amazing, isn't it? It's a temple of the Holy Spirit. Paul's saying here, don't trash the temple. Don't trash the temple. Take care of it. As God convicts you of things, confess those things. Take those things to the cross, things that you have done in the body. Turn away from them and say, God, I want to live a new way. I want to honor you and glorify you in my body. In my body. Your body matters to God. Honor God in your body. When I look into the mirror, I see a lot of things that I would like to change, right? I always have. I don't care where I was a junior high kid at the state fair or high school, college, or, in those glory years when you're about hitting 30, right? From 30 to 33, the Jesus years. It didn't matter. There was always something that I wanted to change. When I look into the mirror, I see scars, like literal scars. So I have a scar here over my left eye. When I was like 3 years old, I was holding some cats and stuff. It was a slippery porch outside, and smack, I opened up my left eye, which I've always thought was great. If I ever do something really bad and get in prison and escape, they can say, Benjamin Blake Young is out on the loose. He's about 6 feet, 170, and a scar over the left eye. Sounds good, doesn't it? So I've got a scar there. I always see that scar. It hadn't left me. I got a scar right here. Hit my head on the, you're safe in bed. No, I hit my head on the bedpost when I was a kid. A lot of time at the ER. Scar right here on my chin. Senior year in high school, basketball, first game, fell on the hardwood floor, boom. Scars. I don't know. When I'm dead and gone and I'm living in 2.0 world and a 2.0 body, I don't know if I'll have scars or not. I don't know. I do know that Christ had scars. Yeah. Thomas said, I'm not going to believe until I've seen the scars. For some reason, he had the scars. as a reminder of the price he paid, as a reminder of the love that he has for us, as a reminder that God can take the worst tragedy that can happen in the human body, torturous crucifixion, and turn it into something good in the future resurrection. We just see dimly in a mirror now, one day face to face, and we'll be fully known. That's our promise.